Okay, so we're going to talk about academic writing skills again today. So this is LO3, so all around how we use language, style and conventions appropriate to academic writing. So part of this unit is around the language and style and conventions that you should be using in academic writing. It's a different type of writing to any other kind of writing. So you should use certain conventions such as standard English and appropriate terminology throughout, adapting the style and register to the audience, and including a bibliography or in-text citation to show awareness that using the words, ideas of others has been acknowledged. Should use a range of sources such as books, academic journals, articles, and published expert reports. It's good practice also to avoid using just website references. So you should have access on Moodle to academic journals and academic texts and books. So it's really important that you get yourself familiar with the style and tone of the writing. Okay, so key terminology. What does a pronoun mean? So the definition of a pronoun. So a pronoun is defined as a word or phrase that is used as a substitution for a noun or noun phrase, which is known as a pronoun's antecedent. Pronouns are short words and can do everything that nouns can do and are one of the building blocks of a sentence. So here's an example of a plural pronoun. Any of a small set of words such as I, she, he, you, it, we, or they, in a language that are used as substitutes for nouns or noun phrases and whose referents are named or understood in the context. Okay, so I've had some problems with this video previously, but I'm going to give it another go. So this is a brief introduction to academic writing. Loading now.
Hi, I'm Ellen. In this video, I'm going to talk about some general features of academic writing that you need to be familiar with if you want to succeed in your own writing at university. First of all, you need to consider that writing is communicative. In all forms of communication, there is a sender who transmits a message to a receiver. In academic writing, that message will be a fact-based argument, and in order to successfully deliver this, you need to know who you're writing for and what you can expect your target reader to already know. In other words, identifying your audience is crucial. Another central feature of academic writing is that it's objective, which means you should avoid biased language and generalizations, and that you shouldn't bring in your personal preconceptions or opinions. An academic essay about, say, a fictional character, a political conflict, or a religious issue should present an argument that sheds light on the actual topic, but mustn't be a subjective statement on the part of the writer. Academic writing is a formal genre, and you are expected to use a rather strict register and format. This can be a challenge, especially for non-native writers, as different levels of formality might be difficult to recognise in a second language. Remember, the question of style and register in writing is not necessarily a difference between what is right or wrong language-wise, but rather specifies what is the preferred style for a specific occasion. In other words, what is right in one context may not be considered okay in another. Just as you wouldn't wear flip-flops to a formal dinner, you don't use the informal style of text messages between friends in a job application or a university essay. But how do you go about finding the right level of formality for writing at university then? Well, one way is to study texts within your specific discipline. As a university student, you have loads of helpful resources to hand. You have access to your university library resources, books as well as journals, and perhaps also student papers and degree projects written at your department. Read texts within your discipline to learn how scholars and experienced students write. Look for things like how they introduce their argument, how they define and use discipline-specific terms, and how they make use of previous research within the field. The last thing I'd like to raise here is the fact that writing practices do vary from one academic discipline to the next. This means that you need to learn what is expected of you for the particular text that you are writing. An article in physics looks very different from one in history, for instance. If you transfer from one discipline to another, you'll notice that although the basics remain the same, the way that texts are written when it comes to referencing and text structure, for instance, may differ.
Okay. Just going to go back to the next section. So the next section is, let's have a look. Okay, so 3.1. So write accurately following accepted written language conventions. So the ability to explain a concept or argument to an audience is a skill that can be learned. So as the video showed, it is a really good skill to pick up, and I found in my experience at university the best way to understand the writing style, the academic tone, is to really study and read text within your discipline, so you can really get used to what the style is. And also it's important with each assignment to understand what is being requested of you as well. So, okay. So we've gone over the analysis of a question, and that was in the previous session last week, and the planning of an answer. So if you remember how you draw out command words from the question, and how you make a plan to answer the assignment question. So we now need to take into account who we are addressing our answer to. So it's all about who your audience is. Oh, excuse me. Your audience could be the person who set out the question. It could be a group of peers. It could be a group of strangers who have never heard of the concepts you are trying to explain within your discipline. So they could have never, they may be completely new to this subject area. So whoever the audience is, it's important to remember your writing needs to be tailored and adapted to enable your message to be understood. So here's an example. So if you said hypertension can lead to congestive cardiac failure and myocardial infarction, said to the doctors, that would be understood. However, the use of jargon makes it very difficult for anyone else to understand. So to a lay audience, you would say, high blood pressure can stop the heart working properly and can lead to a heart attack. So this isn't my subject area, but I would, as a new person to this area, I understand the last sentence better. So that makes sense to me because I'm new to the subject. So it is a simple changes that you can make to the wording of your answer that will not only make the work more understandable to everyone, but can also demonstrate to those assessing the work that you really understand the audience you are presenting your work to and have demonstrated higher level thinking in the process. You're adapting your work and your explanations dependent on the audience, which is a skill in itself. So what is a pronoun? So a pronoun is defined as a word or phrase that is used as a substitution for a noun or noun phrase, which is known as the pronoun's antecedent. Pronouns are short words and can do everything that nouns can do and are one of the building blocks of a sentence. So essentially it connects the different words within the sentence. So if we can write a list of third person pronouns, here's an example. So you have she, her, hers, herself, belonging to she. You've got he, himself, his, himself, it, its, itself, and they, them, theirs, themselves, which is plural. So if you look at the different examples here, if we change the following sentence starters from the first person to the third person. So A, the format is a report. So you know the format of the piece that you're writing needs to be in the style of a report. So I will be arguing that climate changes. They will be arguing that climate changes. So that should be the style and the pronoun that's been used. So B, format essay. As a nurse, I need to be aware of equality and diversity when caring for patients. Changes to, as a nurse, she needs to be aware of equality and diversity when caring for patients. So that's changed from the first person to the third person. Format for a presentation. So this is if you're going to do a presentation to maybe peers or teachers. So to take it from third person would be, in first person, I am going to talk about my experiment on social conformity amongst adults. That would change to, he is going to talk about his experience on social conformity amongst adults. This standardisation helps to set the tone of the work you are writing. The tone is the manner or characteristics of the writing itself. The following elements help to create the tone of academic writing. So the formal writing style, maintaining an impersonal or a third person tense, for example, not using I. The use of sophisticated vocabulary relating to the question being asked. So, for example, avoiding slang terms or abbreviations. It's really important to be able to recognise different styles of writing as they are linked to different audiences. So far, we have considered academic writing, but in the activity that follows, you will see the effects of adapting the style and register of language to suit different formats and audiences. So 3.2, this is all around using appropriate style and register to show an awareness of audience. So what is writing style? So at level 3, you need to be able to adopt a style of writing appropriate for the task. This requires you to understand the audience and the purpose of the task. So knowing the text purpose and understanding the audience equates to adopting the correct formality and tone. And this combination of two different things is called a register. So the next section is all around different text styles. So the style is usually determined by the audience and or the purpose of the text. So different styles may include factual, academic, official, instructional, journalistic, and fictional. So maybe you have a minute to just write down maybe different styles of text that you maybe read day to day, whether it be in academia or just day to day reading magazines or books that you may read for personal purposes. If you could maybe over the next minute or so maybe write down some examples of what you feel like you read day to day. And then we'll move on. So factual text. So factual writing can be found in many different places. So from newspapers, magazine articles, textbooks, or on the internet. So factual writing will usually be in a really formal style, using long and complex sentences. So usually it'll be backed up with data, with statistics and evidence, and it'll be well organised and have clear layouts so information can be easily found. It may have footnotes, quotations, or other forms of reference. It may use diagrams or charts to explain complex data. So how you present data is important also. It will introduce its subject, then follow it with a balanced argument, and it will usually summarise its main points in a conclusion. Academic writing is really similar in style to factual writing. It will include elements of factual writing, but it might be more detailed and precise. It will avoid any omissions or errors, as it will most likely be examined in great detail. It will be very clear and logical. It may be dry or not fun to read because its purpose is to educate, not entertain. I think that's the key difference. So, for example, you read a newspaper or a magazine or a book, that may be to entertain a certain audience, but with academic writing, we're not about entertaining, this is about education. and presenting your particular discipline. So academic writing may offer other subjects on the subject area about to add further balance. It will usually include technical, so discipline technical terms specific to your discipline area, subject area, or very specific vocabulary. Official texts. So official writing will include letters that you may receive in the post, business proposals and press releases, among many others. Its style includes these elements, so we'll have formal language, polite language, especially in letters, possible specific or technical elements, and extreme detail, especially in legal documents. So any legal documents that you may have come across will be really detailed. Possibly archaic language, including Latin, and neutral and impersonal language. Instructional texts. So instructional texts may include wikis or manuals. Their style includes instructional language, imperatives. So technical vocabulary specific to the subject. Textual features such as illustrations, diagrams, bullet points. Advisory language, could, should, might. So that's the kind of language you would expect in instructional texts. So as we move on to journalistic texts, so here is another style of writing. So journalistic texts range from tabloids to newspapers, magazine articles and online pieces. They could be like on BBC News, for example. They can also vary in style depending on the seriousness of the writer. So there's two different styles when it comes to journalistic texts. So you have serious to the left, serious broadsheet journalism, which is logical, really impartial, serious in subject matter. So maybe think of any newspapers or any evidence of serious or broadsheet journalism you may read day to day. It'll be less eye-catching. And the opposite of that type of journalism is the tabloid journalism. So you'll notice in the tabloids, it's more emotive, more bias, range of subject area, and the opinions can vary from mild to extreme. The subject, the title of a particular article may be really eye-catching to drag in audiences, and use of images to imply meaning. And we have fictional texts. So fictional texts are stories, poems, novels, scripts, and so on. Here are three key features. Just checking that this is recording still. It is, just checking. Okay, so fictional texts. So fictional texts are stories, poems, novels, scripts, and so on. So maybe if you have any books that are fictional, maybe have a look at those. So you can compare these different summaries of what is usually in a fictional text. So often use flowery language and imaginative language. They may have imaginary characters and situations. They may take an unusual style like poetry with a different style of line spacing or paragraphing. Longer texts will be organised into act chapters or episodes. So the presentation of fictional texts is really different compared to academic texts. So it's just worth maybe looking at the key differences there so you can get used to the certain style that you will need when you answer your assignments. So 3.3, if you use accurately a standard form of referencing reflecting a range of sources, so it's really important that you do use an array of different types of texts from your discipline area, so you can really show that you have done your research. So academic writing is clear, concise, focused, structured, and backed up by the evidence. its purpose is to aid the reader's understanding. It has a formal tone and style, but it is not complex and does not require the use of longer sentences and complicated vocabulary. So here are some of the references that we've used today, if you want to have a look at those outside of here. Here are some good examples also within these. It'd be good to kind of have a read over these for some help if you need more help understanding the key concepts within this module. So for some homework for the next session, if you were have to do some reading around this subject guides and your subject guides .york.ac.uk. So I'll have a little look now. So between now and the next session, if you can have a read over this, well, this will really kind of go over the key areas again around academic writing. And there's another handy video on here as well. Around academic writing style. So if you can, have a read over that. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to send us an email at learnerwork@ukversity.co.uk. If you do have any problems, just give us a call. Somebody will be there to help you on the other line. But yeah, please do reach out if you have any problems understanding any of the areas that we've covered today. And I'm going to bring up the assignment again for you to have a look at. So this is the assignment. So you'll notice that there's two parts to this question. So there's A and B. And each section you will see in brackets is AC12, AC3.1. So I just want to make sure, because somebody asked a question around this last week, that you understand what that is in relation to. So that is connected to the learning outcomes. So each particular section wants you to focus on these key areas. So for example, 1.1, interpret the meaning of the implications of a specific question. So the assessment, this is the assessment criteria. So once you get to grips with this, it really helps you then when you're answering your question, you can be really focused on these key areas. And this is all on Moodle as well. But if you can have a read over these for the next session, that will be really helpful to you, I think. Okay, so that's everything. Stop the share. See you next time. Thank you.